Hello everybody, and welcome to our solo adventure inaugural game of Horrified. Happy Halloween, and we're going to see how well this game works. So if you've never played Horrified before, you're in a small European-type town. The town is being overrun by monsters. As you can see, this particular town has to deal with Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Invisible Man. So in this particular game, the monsters are trying to get the terror track up. Since it is a solo game, we start at 3. A normal game of more than one person starts down here at 0. Once it gets to the skull, the game is over and the monsters win. So in this particular game, we have Dracula. Dracula is a Frenzy 1. The Wolfman is a Frenzy 5, and the Invisible Man is a Frenzy 6. So the lowest monster starts as a frenzied monster, which I'll be going over in a minute. In this particular game, we have to destroy all 4 of Dracula's coffins, which take red cards, which the cards at random in the bag are in red, blue, and yellow. And they have denomination points on them. They show up to very specific places when you draw them, and you can pick them up there. So with this game, you have to you have to destroy Dracula's coffins, where you have to use 3 of those cards, which value up to 6 or more. They have to be red. Once you've destroyed Dracula's coffins, then you have to beat him up, which requires 3 of those tokens, 6 or more in yellow. The Wolfman's a little harder. You have to make it to the laboratory token space on here, where you have to turn in blue items in levels 1, 2, and 3, and then 1, 2, and 3. Once you get that, then you can actually get a cure for the Wolfman. And then once you're on the same space with him, you basically have to beat him into submission by taking the cure with red 6 or more. The final is the Invisible Man. The Invisible Man, you have to make it to the precinct location, where you have to turn in specific items from specific places. So you have to turn an item in from the inn, the barn, the mansion, the laboratory, and the institute. They can be any color, any denomination, but you have to make it back there to turn them in. Once you get that done, once you're on the same location as the Invisible Man, you have to actually stop him with red tokens, which are 9 or more in total value. Once you do that, then you've stopped all 3 monsters. You have villagers that will randomly show up on the game. When a villager pops up, they want to move to a specific location. Like, for example, here, Dr. Cranley will show up somewhere on the board, and he'll want to make it to the precinct. A lot of times he'll start at the hospital or the laboratory or something like that. So you have to basically escort him across the board. If you do that, you get these positive cards. So positive cards will let you do specific things. For example, choose 1, place the Invisible Man on any space, or move any 3 monsters, skip the next monster phase, and you can draw 2 items from the bag. So they do a lot of things. So this particular game, I'm going to start with 1. So I'm going to mix these up a little bit, and we'll see what we get. So I'll take 1 card, which I'll look at in a moment. The other cards here are the monster cards. Every time I finish my turn, a monster card gets pulled. So what this card does a couple of things. First off, it tells you how many items to pull out of the bag to place randomly on the board. It has an ability that happens, which is one of the monsters in the game. Sometimes the monsters are here, sometimes they're not. And then it has the movement, which in this case it would be the mummy, the creature from the Black Lagoon, and Frankenstein's monster all move 1 space. They're not in this game, so we get to ignore that. If they land on any of your space or the villager space, then you get to roll 3 combat die. The combat die, if I get these little explosions, that's a hit for each combat die. So if I have a villager, the villager would instantly die. If the villager dies, then the terror track goes up by 1. If I get hit, I can sacrifice items that I'm carrying to counter these. So in this particular case, I would have to counter 3 items. Now, the monsters can get blanks, which nothing happens, or they can get special tokens on here, which this is the exclamation point. every monster has an exclamation point power. So Dracula's is Dark Charm. Place the current player's hero in Dracula's space, so I get moved to wherever Dracula is. The Wolfman hits everybody on the location. So if it's me and a villager or another player or something like that, then all of us get hit. And finally, the Invisible Man. Move the Invisible Man 2 spaces towards the closest villager. So once they move, they can attack me and then disappear and move somewhere else. Finally, we have the Werewolf Hunted token. The Werewolf Hunted token, it's going to affect me regardless because I'm the only player in this game. But what this does is once I have it and a card pops up saying that I have it, the werewolf will then automatically come towards me. They get to ignore the villagers that are on the board, but he's going to come directly at me. The other thing I do want to point out with the Frenzy token that I mentioned on here. So, for example, we have this card here, which is Retreat. So no items get played. The creature from the Black Lagoon goes back to the river. The werewolf gets to move. The Bride of Frankenstein gets to move. And the Frenzied Monster gets to move. Now, say the werewolf is the Frenzied Monster. The werewolf would get to move. And then because he's frenzied, he gets to move again. So the frenzy is not always a nice thing. Sometimes you get multiple moves on the same monster. In this particular case, Dracula would get to go, but there are cards in here that allow you to move the frenzies around. So we're going to start off with this game and see exactly what I'm going to get. I don't know what player or character I'm going to play as. As you can see, there are 6 player characters. Since we are playing solo mode, the game does request we take a couple of cards here out and take the courier out, because the courier's power is to give items to other players, which is pointless for this game. So we'll mix the player tokens up and we'll see which character I get. Now each character has its own special power, has an amount of abilities that they can use. I don't know which one I'm going to get. So we're going to take the top one here, which I'm getting the Mayor. Now the Mayor has no special abilities whatsoever. They have no special powers to do anything, but they can take up to 5 actions a turn. Those actions can be moving. I can move from one space to another, and I can take a villager with me. I could guide a villager to another space so they just move on their own. I can pick up an item or on a space, so if there's like 4 items on a tower, I can pick them all up if I'm there. I could advance a task by 1, so like for example, I could go and destroy Dracula's coffin here, and that would take up a point. I can defeat a monster. Once I've destroyed all this, I could go and actually fight a monster, or I can use a special action. Well, unfortunately, there's no special action on here, and I just get an additional action that I can use on my turn. So we're going to play as the Mayor, and I start at the theater. So the rest of these are going away. And let's see what my card is. My special card is Overstocked, so each player draws and places 1 item from the item bag. So we're going to start by putting items down from the game. So you have to put 12 items down, and they're at random. So we're going to put down Wolfsbane at the camp. We're going to put down Garlic at the inn. We're going to put a Kite down at the tower. Research down at the tower, the Silver Cane at the shop, Analysis at the Institute, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Pitchfork to the barn, 7, Wine at the church, that's 8, Anatomy text at the Institute, that's 9, actually this one belongs down there, Scrolls at the museum, that's 10, Shovel at the graveyard, that's 11. And a revolver at the precinct, that's 12. So there's my 12 items. And I'm going to use my Overstock card immediately, so I get to put an additional item on the board, which we're going to put another Pitchfork down at the barn. Alrighty. So for my first action, I'm going to move 1. I'm going to pick up both pitchforks at the barn. So that's 2. 3, 4, and I'm going to pick the blue items up here. So that's number 5. me shuffle the monster cards just to make sure. And we'll see what we get. Alright, I had to place 3 items down. Darts at the inn, cosmic ray diffuser at the tower, and a torch at the barn. Renfield shows up to the docks, and Dracula gets to move 2. And since he's the frenzied monster, he gets to move an additional 2. It's not a great turn, but we'll see what happens. So I'm going to pick up the diffuser as my first turn. Second, I'm going to move the dungeon. Third, I'm going to discard the 2 pitchforks to destroy Dracula's coffin at the dungeon. That's 3. 4, 5. I'm going to move down here to the docks, and we'll see what happens. So 2 items from the bag. The hunt is on. So we've got an item for the mansion, and we've got a bear trap for the shop. If no hero has the hunted emblem, give it to the current player. Well, that would be me, so I now have the hunted emblem. Move the Wolfman 3 spaces towards the hero with the hunted emblem. 1, 2, 3. The creature from the Black Lagoon gets to move 1. Dracula gets to move 1. And the frenzied monster gets to move 1. So the frenzied monster is now there. Alrighty. So we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have to get Renfield to the hospital because I don't want the terror track to go up. No items get placed. The creature from the Black Lagoon is not in the game. The Wolfman gets to move 1. The Bride of Frankenstein 1, not in the game. Frenzied Monster 1. And that's it. So we're going to move 1. 2, I'm going to pick up the church wine. 3, I'm going to make it to the hospital, so that discards Renfield, where I get a card. All right. Which I'm going to move, I'm going to brandish a crucifix where I get to move Dracula to any space I want, or I can move a monster up to 3 spaces. I'm going to put the Wolfman back here in the dungeon and get him out of the way. So that's 3. Four, 5. I'm going to pick up that shovel in a moment. So Maliva shows up to the camp, and we put 3 items on the table. So the church gets more wine, the inn gets another dart, and the camp gets a terror deck. So we have Maliva, let's see, she shows up at the camp. She's trying to go to the shop. Wolfman gets to move 1, and the frenzied monster gets to move 1. So let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So they're exact distance from me. So I'm going to move directly to the theater, going towards her. So I'm going to pick up the shovel as my turn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to pick up the silver cane and the bear trap. All right, we just placed 3 items on the board. Tablet to the museum. Laboratory gets experimental equipment, and the barn gets a rifle. Dr. Reed is placed at the Institute, where he's trying to go to the camp. The creature from the Black Lagoon moves 1, doesn't do anything, and since I'm closer, Dracula is going to move back towards me. Since he's the frenzied monster. All right. So 1. 2. I'm going to put this down for the Wolfman. 3. I'm going to put this down for the Wolfman. 4, 5. I'm going to move him away. All right. 3 items on the hit the table. There's a lot of villagers showing up. Museum, the church, and the Institute gets a spear gun. Place Elizabeth at the mansion. Elizabeth is trying to go to the tower, which is a bad place. And the frenzy monster moves 1. So we're going to move 1. You can take any number of villagers with me. That's 2. That's 3. Which I get Dr. Reed to the camp. So I draw a card. That's 4. And 5, I'm going to destroy the silver cane to destroy Dracula's coffin in the cave. Okay. 0 items. Reincarnated soul affects the mummy, so it doesn't affect me. The werewolf moves 1. Let's see, Dracula moves 1, and the invisible man moves 1. 1, take them all with me. 2, 3, 4, 5. So I get Elizabeth to the tower. So I'm going to draw another card. Which I'm going to play Rush, so I get to move any hero up to 4 spaces. I don't want to do that, because if I move any hero, it's just going to move me. So we're going to, instead, we're going to play Power of the Ancients. I may move any monster up to 3 spaces. So we're going to move the Wolfman away. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put him back to the mansion. I'm going to hang on to this other one because I want to make sure I can get... I'm going to leave it to the shop. So let's see here. 2 items. Now the torch at the barn, the knife to the dock. The card affects Frankenstein and his bride, so that doesn't do anything. Creature from Black Lagoon moves 2. The werewolf moves 2. And the invisible man moves 2. So the invisible man is going to use 1 combat die, which doesn't do anything. Now, if the die did do a hit, then because I and the villager are on the same place, I can choose which one they hit. All right. So 1, 2, 3. I get her to the shop. So I get another card. Four, five. I'm going to turn the kite in so that way I get the first row of the Wolfman cure done. So we're going to, let's see here. Now I'm going to move a hero up to 4 spaces. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to end up at the barn. And let's see what happens. 3 items. Kite gets tower, research to the tower, rapier to the theater. On the move, move the frenzy marker to the next monster. So that goes to the Wolfman. Move each villager 1 space towards their location. Well, there's no villagers on the board, so I don't have to worry about that. Frenzied monster gets to move 3. So now I get to deal with the Wolfman on me with 2 dice, which does nothing. That works out for me. So number 1, I'm going to pick up all 3 of these items. Let's see here. So shop barn, graveyard. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm at the precinct, and there is an item for the barn. So I'm going to get rid of one of these torches, and I'm going to put it onto the Invisible Man. So that is an item down on the Invisible Man. And we're going to move Dracula 3 back. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to put Dracula at the Institute and get him way away from me. So 2 items hit the table. The Abbey gets a stake, and the laboratory gets a centrifuge. So Thief, place the Invisible Man at the location with the most items, discarded all items there. So we've got 3 here, 3 at the museum, and 3 at the Institute. So I need the inn, so I'll basically choose which one I want. I don't need... So I've got a 1 and a 2 at the laboratory. There's a 1 and a 2 at the Institute. So we're going to move the Invisible Man at the Institute. And I'll discard these 3 items. Because I've got enough red items, so I'll get rid of those. And then the Mummy moves, the Creature of the Black Lagoon moves, and Frankenstein moves, which are not in this game. So item 1, I'm going to pick up the pistol. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to move to the Abbey, which I'm going to go destroy the Dracula coffin in the crypt next turn. Uh-oh. Sunrise. Place Dracula at the crypt. The Invisible Man gets to move 1. Frankenstein gets to move 1, and the Wolfman, as the Frenzied Monster, gets to move 1. So I'm going to move to the crypt. That's 1. I'm going to sacrifice the pistol. That's 2, which I'm going to destroy the crypt coffin. 3, 4, 5. See if we can get rid of Dracula. All right, place Dr. Cranley at the laboratory. Well, that's really, really bad. 3 cards hit the table. Precinct gets another pistol. Camp gets a violin. And the tower gets a neutronium. The Invisible Man gets to move 1. Which he's on the same location as Dr. Crowley. Wolfman gets to move 1. And 2 combat dice. So he's going to attack. The Invisible Man's going to attack Dr. Crowley. And hits and kills Dr. Crowley. So the terror track now goes up by 1. That's not a good sign. So 1, I'm going to pick up both of these yellow items. 2, I'm going to discard the rifle to destroy the graveyard coffin. 3, 4, 5. Moving back to the mansion. So I'm going to have my showdown with Dracula next turn as long as he cooperates. Two items hit the table. So we've got a fossil at the encampment and another stake at the abbey. The Fex Frankenstein, the Creature from the Black Lagoon, the Wolfman gets to move 2. And the Invisible Man gets to move 2. All right. 1, 2. I need a 6 or better with 3 items. So 4, which is the Crucifix. 5, 6, that's the 2 wine. So I'm going to beat Dracula and senseless with a Crucifix and wine, and that takes care of Dracula. So that's 2. 3, 4, 5. Now it is the next turn. So let's see what we got. 0 items. The power is for the mummy. So the werewolf moves 1. Dracula is now out of the game, doesn't matter. And the Invisible Man moves 1. So 1, 2. I'm going to pick up all this stuff because I want this level 3 item from the camp. So that's 2. 3, 4, 5. Next turn, I'm going to see if I can cure the Wolfman. Again, no items. Reanimated soul affects the mummy. The werewolf moves 1. The Invisible Man moves 1. So far, this is working out for me. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to pick up these 2 blue items. So that brings it to 5. Zero items. The Wolfman moves 1. The Frenzy Monster moves 1. And that's all that happens this turn. So I'm going to put in the Centrifuge. That's 1. The Laboratory Equipment. So that's 2. So I'm able to make the cure. Spot below that matches the item strength. If the spot below are filled, take the cure. So I have the cure now. So that's 2. I need 6 or beyond. I got that. 3, 4, and I need a 6 or better to fight the Wolfman. So 4 for the bear trap. 5, 6, that's the shovel. I will sacrifice those. And I get rid of the Wolfman. But now that moves the frenzy track to the Invisible Man, who is the last monster on the board that I have to deal with. So let's see, I need an item from the Institute, which I do not have. The Laboratory, which I do not have. The Mansion, which I can get. And the Inn, which I can get. All right. 2 items at the table. The Laboratory and the Mansion. And the Invisible Man gets to move too. Since the Wolfman's out of the game, he gets to use a combat die. Where he hits me. I will get rid of this wine. So that way I don't take any damage. And then we go on to my turn. So 1, I'm going to pick up these items. 2, 3, 4, and I'm going to pick up these items from the inn, which brings it up to 5. No items on the table. Retreat, which fetches the creature from Black Lagoon. The Wolfman's out of the game. Bride of Frankenstein's out of the game. And the Frenzied Monster, which is now the Invisible Man, gets to move 1. So 1, 2, 3. I'm going to pick up the pistol. 4. I'm going to put the darts down. 5. I'm going to put the Mansion down. So I just need the Institute and the Laboratory items. Alright, so we place 2 items on the table. So there's the Institute. Oh, that works out. And the Theater. Invisible Man gets to move to a location with the most items and discard them there. Well, there's 3 items on the museum and 3 items on the tower. The museum items I don't care about, so I'm going to move him there. So we're going to discard those items. And the mummy gets to move, the creature gets to move, and Frankenstein gets to move. So none of them are in the game. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I made it to the Laboratory. And we need to play 3 items. And the garlic, a camera at the Laboratory, and a shovel at the graveyard. Place Lucy at the theater. Dracula gets to move, which he's dead, and the Invisible Man gets to move 2. So 1, 2. Lucy is trying to go to the mansion, which that's not too bad. So 1, I'm going to pick up Laboratory items. 2, 3, I'm going to pick up Institute items. 4, 5. I got enough items here. I'm not going to worry about that. 3 items get placed. The Institute, the Inn, and the Mansion. Place Professor Pearson at the cave. And Professor Pearson's trying to go to the museum. Mummy gets to move, and the Invisible Man gets to move. Use 2 combat dice. So 1, I'm going to get rid of the violin, because I don't need that. But he gets to move 2. towards a villager. Well, that's not good. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're just going to try to get rid of this. I want another white card. Five. So we're moved to the, that motivates me to the mansion. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So Lucy gets to the mansion, goes away. I get a good card. Which I get to move. I'm going to play Hurry, move a hero up to 2 spaces. 1, 2. So I'm now the closest. 2 items on the board. And the Institute. The power affects Dracula, which is not no wonder in the game. The Mummy, the Bride of Frankenstein, and the Invisible Man get to move 1. So he's now at my location with 2 combat dice. Hits for 1, which I'm going to throw a tarot card deck away. So that way I bypass the damage. So 1, I move to the precincts. 2, I'm going to put an Institute card down. 3, I'm going to put a laboratory card down. So that gives me enough items to spot the Invisible Man's location. In the Invisible Man's space, use 9 plus red to defeat him. So that's 3. He's right there. 4. 6. 9. So I'm going to use the pistol and the fireplace poker. 9, and I defeat the Invisible Man, thereby saving the town from all of these horrific monsters. I'm really surprised it's worked out as well as it's done. The last couple times I've tried playing this, the monsters have beaten me senseless. But it's surprisingly worked out with the mayor. So, this has been a solo adventure playthrough of Horrified. Stay tuned for further episodes this month where we're going to be playing Horrified, the American Monsters, and a few other Halloween-themed solo adventure games. But until next time, everyone, have a great gaming day, and happy Halloween.